Okay, so today we're diving into something huge. And I'm not talking about hype here. We're looking at what might be the single biggest turning point in the entire history of computing. It's this fundamental shift in how we talk to machines, and it's happening, like, right now.
And that right there, that's the choice we're all facing. The tools coming out today are literally rewriting the rulebook. You have to understand what's happening because this window of opportunity, the chance to be an architect of what's next, it's open right now. But it's not going to stay open forever. So, what is really changing here? I mean, it's way more than just some clever chatbots, right? The real revolution, the thing that's truly mind-blowing, is that this massive gap that's existed for like 75 years, the distance between what you want a computer to do and what it can actually do, well, that gap is basically collapsing to zero.
Okay, to really get how big this is, we've got to go back, way back. See, every piece of technology is really a product of its time. And the way we first started organizing data, it was a perfect, almost literal mirror of the world it was born into.
So picture this, the post-war American corporation. What did it look like? Well, it was basically modeled on the military. You had this super rigid chain of command, information flowed up, decisions flowed down. It was all about order, hierarchy, and control. You didn't question the system because the hierarchy was the system.
And get this, the very first databases were a literal copy of that corporate org chart. I mean, the data was organized like a tree. If you wanted to find an employee, you had to start at the top, the company, then go down to the division, then the department. You had to follow the rules. Trying to ask a question that cut across that structure? Almost impossible. It was like needing the CEO's permission just to talk to someone in another department. Crazy, right? Well, that kind of rigidity, it just couldn't last. Something had to give. And a rebellion did come in the form of what we call the relational model, or SQL. It was this brilliant idea to flatten out that whole hierarchy. But here's the thing. This revolution wasn't just about a better idea. Nope. It was driven by a really powerful economic force, scarcity.
I want you to really let this number sink in. $50,000 for one single gigabyte of storage back in 1970. I mean, that's just wild. Every single byte was precious. This wasn't some minor detail. It was the single biggest constraint that shaped an entire generation of technology. So naturally, SQL's entire design was a direct answer to that insane cost. Its main goal was something called normalization, which is basically a fancy way of saying you shred information into a million little pieces across different tables. The goal, above all else, was to save space. You just could not, under any circumstances, store the same piece of data twice. So here's the irony. While SQL flattens the hierarchy for the data, it actually created a new one for people. It gave us the database administrator, the DBA. And they became this new kind of priesthood, They were the guardians of the single source of truth. They defined the rules. They granted you permission. They held all the keys to the kingdom. And then, everything changed. The next big shift wasn't about some new, brilliant theory. It was about economics. That one fundamental constraint that shaped that whole SQL era, the high cost of storage. It didn't just shrink. It just evaporated.
I mean, the cost of storage didn't just fall, it absolutely collapsed. We're talking by a factor of 10 million in just 40 years. It's just mind-boggling. And all of a sudden, the thing you needed to save wasn't space anymore. The most expensive thing in the room became developer time. The real cost was moving too slowly. Think about what this meant. In that SQL world, trying to put together something as simple as a social media post was a total nightmare. You'd have to write these super complex queries just to pull the post from one table, the user from another, the comments from a third. It was this painstaking process of reassembling the meaning that you'd shredded apart in the first place. The logic, the meaning, it wasn't in the data itself. It was buried in the code you had to write.
But then came JSON, and it just flipped the whole thing on its head. The idea was so simple. What if the structure is the data? So a post just contains its comments. The whole context is right there, together. And that flexibility, that's what unlocked the modern platform economy. It's why companies could move so fast, iterate like crazy, and, monetize every little interaction.
And that brings us to right now, to the shift that's happening as we speak. And honestly, this one is the most profound of all. We're not just talking about how we structure data anymore. We're talking about dissolving the very logic of programming itself. The controller, the part of the code that has all the rules.
You know the old way of building software, right? It was this agonizing, multi-year process. You'd sit with experts, try to pull all the rules out of their heads, and then hard code everything. And by the time you finally launched, the world had already moved on. The new way? It's completely different. An expert just trains an AI. You deploy it, and then you just keep refining it. That whole cycle shrinks from years down to months or even weeks. It's a total game changer. And this right here is the key to everything. That controller, all that tangled, hard-coded business logic, it's being replaced by a simple prompt. Think about that. Instead of a programmer having to translate what an expert wants into thousands of lines of code, now we can just describe our goal in plain English. English is becoming the new programming language. It's executable.
Okay, so let's bring this all home. This entire 75-year journey we've been on, it's really about one single thing: closing that gap between a human idea and what a machine can actually execute. And that entire incredible history, it's all culminating right now, right at our fingertips. Just think about the progression. In the 40s, you were physically rewiring massive, room-sized computers. Then in the 70s, you were writing SQL. The 2000s, you're using flexible things like JSON. Every single step was about peeling back a layer of translation, of complexity. And today, with natural language prompts, well, we're at the final layer. We can just say what we want. We can state our intent.
Let's make this super concrete. Imagine a woman named Maria. She runs a small grocery store, and it's 2015. All she wants to do is source some really good, ethical bananas. But to do that, she's facing this mountain of complexity. We're talking weeks of research, trying to verify certifications, navigating insane international logistics. It required a ton of specialized expertise that, frankly, she just didn't have.
Okay, now let's fast forward to today, or maybe next year. Maria can just say her goal out loud in one simple sentence. An AI agent can take it from there. It'll handle verifying the suppliers, negotiating the prices, arranging all the shipping, making the payment, all while making sure her ethical standards are met. It's incredible. And that right there is the ultimate point. The power to direct these incredibly complex systems is being put into everyone's hands. It's being democratized. Being a programmer isn't just about writing code anymore. It's about being able to clearly and precisely state what you want to an intelligent system. Your words become the program. So, that brings us full circle, right back to where we started. For 75 years, we've been building up to this moment. And now, these tools are finally here. That gap between an idea and actually making it happen is collapsing. So the only real question left for you is, what are you going to build?